Thank you for watching KTN News here, Morning Prime, and of course paying tribute to this great athlete that we've lost as a country. The world is mourning, and we've had also tributes being paid, being shared, and of course being paid by various leaders, especially from the world's athletics fraternity, including the president, that is Seb Cole. We'll run you by that particular sentiments from him, saying that the world is lost such a great man as we know it. He was also to run this year in the Rotterdam Marathon. We're still holding court with our panelists this morning. Of course, our conversation has taken a bit of a tangent. That is what is the prime story this morning that we are sticking on like a limpet to make sure that, of course, we condole with the family and the world entirely. This was a man that had so much promise, yet his life has been just cut so suddenly, and we don't know what he would have done in the world of athletics. And the only person who survived in that particular tragic accident this morning is Sharon Koske, who was one of the passengers there, and she is currently receiving treatment. Police, they have taken the body of Kiptum to the mortuary. That is the Rescourse Hospital morgue, and we had also them saying it is sad that the country has lost an athlete of Kiptum's stature. This is coming from one of police officers, adding that the investigations into the exact cause of the crash are ongoing. Frederick Mutai, a public service driver who was among the first people to arrive at the scene, said he had the injured woman crying. I called the police, who arrived a few minutes later. We rushed the injured woman for treatment. That is according to Mutai. And the accident ended Kiptum's first rise to stardom. He started off his journey to marathon stardom by winning Valencia Marathon in December 2022. And of course, we'll get a lot of this information today as we continue to pay tribute. And of course, we also put tails on what is happening in the world of politics and the world of current affairs so far. I know I had not also given you what the dailies are holding this morning, and maybe you will want just to get a snippet of what is on the dailies, beginning with the bold paper today. This is what is on the front page of the Standard this morning. Raila hints at backing Kalonzo. That is what we have on the front page of the Standard today. Eye on 2027. Will Odinga be on the 2027 presidential ballot? That is a probing question that is being asked. The ODM leader seemed to be hinting at throwing his lot with Musyoka, who has stood by him in the 2013, 2017 and 2022 polls. If it comes to pass, what impact will it have on the political landscape? That is a probing question on page 6. And we have Raila Odinga's bite here, saying Kalonzo Musyoka and I have worked together for long. When the time comes, we shall agree. If Kalonzo is the candidate, where is the problem? This is the abiding question, he asks, and everyone also is asking that particular question. On the other side of the sidebar, inside Ruto's dual system of cabinet and advisors, the appointment of former Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich as a top presidential advisor shines a spotlight on President William Ruto's unique system of administration, where he has a layer of advisors on top of cabinet secretaries. You have a story on page 5 of the Standard today. It's Eagle versus Elephant as AFCON goes to the wire. That is a story you want to follow on the back page of the Standard this morning. Allow me just to cough a bit. And why Kindiki wants IBC servers to be located in Kenya. That is a story you want to follow on page 4. Why Kindiki wants IBC servers to be located in Kenya, and mounting queries put e-citizen pay system on the spot. That is what is on the front page of today's actually, I'm giving you the wrong paper. I shall run you by the right paper momentarily. I can see that is yesterday's paper. I think in the mix of all this heart-wrenching story, I got mixed up myself as well. This is what is on the front page of the Daily Nation today. Inside fight for control of 435 billion shillings. That is what we have on the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. Row adds to growing concerns in education sector. That is the story you can follow inside the Daily Nation. The Education Ministry and unions have ganged up against the Teachers Service Commission. The battle lines are drawn between the warring factions and the Cabinet Secretary, Ezekiel Machogu, and TSC boss, Nancy Macharia. and it's a fierce scramble for a huge education budget. That is the Daily Nation. Kenya Kwanza, Azimio comes in a fresh IBC war. That is on page 4 of the Daily Nation. And Mada, news tightens on man wanted in US. The Standard reads tough choices in the face of a crisis. Law change, this is it. Tomorrow, Parliament returns from its December recess to a defining moment. The courts have said the reconstitution of IBC must not wait for the political horse trading. House to debate the National Dialogue report, even as Azimio leader Raila Odinga has said opposition must be involved in the selection of commissioners, or they resume demonstration. It is a Solomonic moment for the Speaker, Moses Wetangula. I will give you and show you that particular publication today. My apologies again for running you by the wrong publication. Also, ex-police boss and Uhuru's many missed calls at Bomas. Retired senior police officer Kingori Mwangi, who died yesterday, was a man of many fasts and controversies. His role at the Bomas of Kenya during the 2013 presidential election and tenure as regional police chief were dramatic. You have the story on page 10 of the Daily Nation this morning. Also, Griffer's school bus crushes people to death. That is another story, heart-wrenching one as well, knowing that we are still mourning Kelvin Kiptum. Tragedy also struck Goodrich International School in Katani after the school bus ran over a pupil and killed him. And you have a story on page 2 of the Daily Nation this morning. Ahmed Musa, the silent master, running the show in Super Eagles camp. That is on the back page of the Daily Nation this morning. Churches. How Ruto duped us. All right, finally it's dawning on the churches, so to speak, as the splash will go. It says, deal gone sour. Clergy who backed Kenya Kwanza entered an memorandum of understanding with candidate, which will have seen them rip big after victory, but claim head of state no longer takes their calls. This is Bishop Njiriri. Promises to the clergy were here. Appointment to commissions, state corporations, foreign missions, cabinet boards and committees of national and county governments, nomination to National Assembly, Senate and county assemblies, access to government support and resources. These were many promises. Tax waivers and exemptions. All right, and in light on when we are really trying to actually get a lot of revenue streaming through the KRA docket. Formation of clergy circle for empowerment of ministers of gospel. Formation of quote-unquote registrar of religious organizations delinking from the registrar of societies. Formation of cabinet docket for Ministry of National Guidance and Religious Affairs. Facilitation of formation of chaplaincy, mediation and arbitration. This is what we have on the front page of the... Why are you laughing? Hilary Sege, all of you are laughing.
But
you drafted a document?
In the run-up to the election. I'm surprised that...
you drafted a document?
I did, actually. Because there was a wish list by the religious communities in the run-up to the campaigns. That was a wish list. And I'm loving because I was part and parcel of the people who sat behind that wish list, to go through the wish list by the religious communities. And,
so looking at this wish list...
I wish I had the right of reply to the document that has just been published to go to the newspapers.
maybe the chair of the ad hoc committee on Shakahola can also maybe weigh in on this. You came up with a report. Some of these things, I don't know if they were picked by you or you're solely concentrating on Shakahola. You can tell us, especially when formation of cabinet docket for Ministry of National Guidance and Religious Affairs. Tell me, we have from a ministry, not from the ministry, but from the office of the First Lady. I can see there's a office there that is, they call it the Faith Diplomacy Office. What is it all about? The Faith Diplomacy Office.
Faith Diplomacy.
And there's a director of Faith Diplomacy. Yeah, indeed.
I probably need to confirm, but I know, of course, the First Lady office ordinarily would have certain budget allocated to it, and this we discussed at some point on this platform about the allocation of the First Lady. As to how much they do in terms of programs, I might have to really get to know, particularly with regard to the specific reference to you saying the faith one. But remember, this is a government that is led by believers, the president, the deputy president, both of them over time.
So I'm asking, but when it comes to faith diplomacy, from what legal framework do we have such offices being put up? Because we had also Mama Ruto saying it will transform Kenya. How she wants to transform Kenya through the faith diplomacy, women empowerment and climate action. So faith diplomacy is one of them, and I'm trying to look at that particular gentleman. Can't just, if I get his name, I'll give you who's the director right now of the faith diplomacy. So what action or what job description does, or what is the faith diplomacy meant to do in terms of maybe in the affairs of when we have such disconnect where the expectation is not being managed? You promise a lot during the campaigns, the monies which are being doled out to churches, and then there is nothing that is happening on the ground, and the church is crying. They feel duped. When you say duped, I mean, I don't know the choice of this particular headline as well, but when they feel duped, it's like, oh, so during campaigns, there were lies which were being spewed, or they've not been met, so to speak.
Maybe just to say, as the chair of the ad hoc committee on Shakahola, we actually made a very strong recommendation that religious organizations be delinked from the Societies Act, so that we have a registrar for religious organizations. Mm-hmm. But that's a legal process. It's not something you will deliver one day. We have created a bill, and we have said we need a registrar to manage. Now, all these other things that this gentleman has said that were promised to him, I don't know about them, but I know that in the Shakahola committee, we did actually commit, and we committed to creating that office because we thought that religious organizations need management separate from the Societies Act. And you remember that other organizations were earlier on within the Societies Act have been delinked. So we said this must happen, and we have proposed a bill, and this bill is going to be processed through the normal channel. Mm-hmm. But these other things, I think he needs to tell us the details of that, because already now you can hear Honorable Senator Sigay saying there's a difference between a wish list and what was agreed. So if there's a problem there already, headlines will always be there to try and sell papers, but I'm not sure whether this is exactly, maybe we need he needs to tell us who was seated in those meetings and all that, so there can be a proper reply to that. But at least on the issue of the registrar of religious organizations, this is a recommendation that came from the people that we managed to interview during the tenure of that office. Mm-hmm. Yes.
But the church has been raising hesitations regarding also the running of affairs. We've seen them on, especially on the cost of living, that the government is not really measuring up and up to scratch as far as the cost of living is concerned. Do they in any way feel, just aside from the cost of living, with these sort of revelations that the president has not acted like he actually promised on the ground so far, after so much of his posture and of his image, seen with the church fraternity, and it seems right now that is not really happening. And I just wanted to read what the First Lady had written some time back on X. She says, faith diplomacy, just to tell you that there is that particular docket, is a powerful tool for a cohesive nation. Opinion leaders like pastors, church elders, and church leaders, if well equipped, can have significant positive impact as peace agent. This is what she wrote on X.
Dibal, I don't really think that anyone of us is doubting what faith diplomacy can do to this country. We are all Christians, and within the Muslim faith, we believe faith can really change a country depending on how people take it up. But to me, I'm just wondering why my colleagues are even talking about this being duped. How many Kenyans have been duped by the same? You know, we have politicians on this table. And even Mungatara will tell you there are so many people who are waiting for to be given what they were promised by him when he was campaigning. So to me,
and by you also,
and by me also. That's what I'm saying as politicians. I don't know even why we are seeing this as something which is not normal. In Kenyan politics, this is the word of the day. Ni kupanga watu wanapangwa. So this guys were just walipangwa tu wakaingia box. So let them just continue preaching the word of God. That's what I can tell them. Because we have told them, you know, politicians, the way they craft their manifestos, they craft their strategies in terms of how to make sure that they get votes. So many things happen. And I'm telling you, you have seen them on Italy and even in print media where they are saying now they are talking about the real issues, you know, cost of living. That's it. But you know, this one, you wonder, somebody is already a church minister, very senior, and they want to be appointed to be an ambassador. Now, who will do God's work now once you become an ambassador? To me, now let them discuss the issues we are discussing. And that's what we say, the church should be the alternative voice, that voice of reason, so that when things don't work out, you are there to tell the government you're not doing things right. And I want to comment, for the last 2 or 3 weeks, we have seen the church now coming out. You have seen the Catholic bishops through the letters they do, the regular letters they do, telling the government things are not working out well. We've seen them on the pulpit, telling the government the cost of living is getting to a level where the people we are preaching to, we are facing challenges, because they could easily pick this evidence through monitoring the offering, the tithing, because these are some of the clear indicators to show the kind of lives people are living. And I happen to be in church every Sunday, most of the time, every Sunday. And I can tell you for sure, anytime you interact them at personal level, they can tell you that the offerings, the tithing, even the normal church giving, where you have a project and you want to do a project, you want the washrik to give, they are experiencing lots of difficulties because of the high cost of living, because of the hard economic times. So to me, that's what now the church should be focusing on, to pray for the government first of all, and at the same time tell the government you need to change your tact. So when I see my colleagues Magatani and Zingei seeing this as a new thing,
actually,
we are all in politics, guys.
Yes. allow me to give a rejoinder to.
Can I hear from Farah, then we come to you?
All right, thank you.
Farah Malim, what will you have to say?
Religion. This is a secular state.
It's a secular state.
Yes, it's a preamble in the constitution. Religion is a very private matter, and religion gravitates and comes together occasionally when there are certain issues to do with morality and areas like that where people need to come. For example, the first lady, she invited a few of us into the State House one time, and we had a session with her. And at that time, our biggest worry is actually the values that cut across both Muslims, Christians, any faith, and our African traditions. Mm-hmm. And we found her very, we were very, I think for lack of a better word, extremely impressed with the position that she has taken, which was in sync with what we all believed in. That in this world now, where there's a lot of efforts by the so-called major powers to try and tie acceptance of LGBTQ and other things to AIDS and all those things, loans and grants and the rest of them, that we needed ourselves to protect our values. And she was very focused on that, extremely focused. I was there with, we were invited, a few of us, myself, Peter Kaluma, and a few other religious people from Parliament. And I think that one is going on well as far as I'm concerned. And I'm extremely happy with that. And we basically are going to cascade that into schools and institutions of learning and everywhere. so that we go for what's called a moral rearmament. We need to redraw our compass back again, because this is it's a global, we're in a global village, and in that global village, children have access to everything. They have access to pornography, they have access to, LGBTQ, they have access to all those things. And as far as I'm concerned myself, I think we have to be very firm with our value systems as Africans, and also with our faiths, and not allow ourselves to be, literally straitjacketed into the Western way of thinking. We can't take that. And she was very firm, very, very strong. And we gave her all our support, and we said we'll continue with this for the best interest. In that moral alignment, I have no problem with the faiths coming together. Let me tell you one thing. I don't know why the church is talking about the cost of living. I'll tell you why. Because from the very beginning it was that give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and give unto God. Yeah. Give unto God what belongs to God, and unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. So religion has never been about the common person. You know what I mean? That's why the church is the biggest landowner here in the country, the richest. And it's the same all over the world. And no any transformation, any reforms has impacted very much on the common person, in as far as the cost of living is concerned, the shelter for the common man. No. The church doesn't go out there. The church extorts and takes money, basically.
I like the choice of words.
That's a privilege, a way of...
Extorts and...
Yeah, from the common people.
No, we need to protect
Hang on, let me explain these things, and I'll put it to you. The church takes money from the common person. It goes into the pockets of the poor guy who goes out there and gets, in a day, 200, 300 shillings, and tells him, okay, put your tithe in here. You understand my point? And that money is never taken back and powered back to the society in the form of, very rarely do you find a few institutions of health and the rest of it. And most of them depend on external, foreign, what you call donors and the rest. In our case, you ruling and governance, you have to have somebody who is both a philosopher as well as a statesman. Philosophy basically is, we all know, you have to think very loud about society and how society lives for you to see what's best for society. And being a state person is also to see what's practicable in terms of experiences and everything else, how to run all the different aspects of the government. For that to happen, I think every desire, whether it is the Industrial Revolution, whether it is the state and the church and the state, the conflict between the church and the state, whether it is all, nothing has been pretty much about the common person. In our case, I can tell you, in our case in the early days, the Prophet was a very frugal person. Our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was a frugal person who was poor. He didn't have any wealth. He didn't have any wealth, actually. But again, the coffers of the state were bulging. The Beit al-Mal, what is called the Beit al-Mal. And that used to be taken to the common people out there. So much so that one of the caliphs said, if a horse trips because the roads are not properly paved those days in the manner that they used to pave, I'll be asked on the day of judgment, what did you do about it as Omar? And the second caliph used to go around the society at night to see if there's anybody who is unable to sleep because they're hungry. And he runs into the granaries and picks food there. So much so that one time he was lighting the fire for that family, and the smoke and the majiv, what do you call it, the ashes went into his own beards, and he was crying while he was cooking food for a family that did not have. Now, are we living that life now? No. From the Umayyads and from I think about 4 or 5 centuries later, after that, everything went into the leadership. The opulence now went to the leaders, the amirs, the imams, the people who led the faith now amassed. You get my point? And we never got it right from that time on. Actually, from that time on, that's why you see all sorts of conflicts in there. The wealth there's never been a transformation to address the common man. A few of them tried to do it, like Gaddafi did it, and of course you see how he eventually succumbed. So when the church talks about these things between us, they're just there as part of the problem. And the mosque largely could also be part of that right now, because we don't see them involving so much into collecting from the rich and giving it to the poor. You know, trying to address because of the cost of living is high, the common people out there, and those are the things. And in any revolution, let me tell you one thing, even if it's, look at, go back all the way to the construction of the pyramids and go, and anything development, scientific development, technological development that came in there, it is not spreading prosperity that was there. It is putting up monasteries and castles and all the castles of Europe. You get my point? These were all the privileged, the elite, something going to the elite, and not pretty much, not trickling down to the common person. Otherwise, we would have seen how the common person largely is doing so well. You know, you see farms and granaries and the common people living a good life. So when the church talks about the cost of living right now, when all sorts of, activists and the rest of them, I find a lot of hypocrisy in that. Otherwise, let's go to the villages and see exactly how those very common people are living. Okay, the housing issue is one thing right now that essentially is supposed to address what you call, in a sense, housing for the very poor. But do we have right now a transformational manner in which the nation can be pulled together and say, look, even if it means us becoming socialists for one moment, you know what I mean? Very much. You see what I mean? How do we then make it affordable and available to the very common people on the ground?
And also reduce from 10% to 5%.
Yes. I mean, those are the kinds of but you see, yes, can I just finish? But here you go, and you find politicians who are billionaires themselves and say that Kenyans cannot afford the cost of this, cost of living must be brought down. What have you done yourself to bring down that cost of living? And in any case, do you go out there to your neighbors and the rest of them and see how many of them are going hungry that night? How many of them don't get the basics? How often do you find these political bigwigs go out there and distribute, let's say today I'm going to distribute some 10 million shillings, and I'm going to make sure that every home in here has got a manner in which they can have a certain basic amount of money in this locality for their children, so that they can be going to school or going to the schools themselves, and say, how do we then put food in the schools out there so these children don't have to go on an empty stomach? Or says that I'm going to sponsor what do you call it? Not a kitchen soup, but a porridge, activity in my constituency, in this school here, or this number of schools, so that every day the kids come, I'll get that out of my pocket, or even out of my own what they call salaries and the rest of it. So when we're talking about the cost of living, and we're talking about the plight of the very common people out there, and as an elite ourselves, we're basically trying to seek our own relevance and trying to use that mainstream society for electoral purposes, and that's it.
Let's see from Hilary Sigay, briefly.
Thank you.
You had a rejoinder first of all before you determine what is saying.
What Farah Malima said about the role the church plays is very critical, and it is actually critical not only in terms of building the society that we would want, bringing back the morals that we over time have sort of lost, and besides that, having a conversation around the leadership. And so, even in the run-up to the elections, the Kenya Kwanza government had categorized various groups. Remember, we had the hustler, we had the youth, the elderly, the church generally, and everyone else played a role in campaigning. We had for the elderly their certain desires. Part of it has now been fulfilled in terms of the monthly stipend that they are getting. For the youth, we're still struggling to create job opportunities. Remember, President Uhuru Kenyatta, retired now, had banned the registration of churches for a couple of years. I think it must have been from 2014 to actually it was lifted last year. One of the things that the government then had as a reason for freezing or placing a ban on registration of churches was the radicalization of the church. There are so many churches out there that are structured. They have good governance. They have got institutions that run themselves, and they do a good job. there are also some briefcase, the ones like now what led to the Shakahola story that we are talking about. So, though then the government had every good reason to ban the registration of churches, it was one of those conversations that we were having. The churches were saying, look, we also need to open up the registration process. We need to enhance. Of course, now the list of the wish, which I told you was sort of a wish list. In the course of these campaigns, people will always bring forward their concerns. And so when Dr. Makali here says that what walipangwa, it's not the right word to use, especially when we're talking about the church. Because we had, the church is a great mobilizer, remember. Malmi has talked about a meeting between him and the First Lady. And remember, this is a prayerful government. The First Lady is taking a position in terms of enhancing women empowerment through the church and other programs. Dr. Gachagua as well is also doing her part in terms of building the foundation for a number of churches. And in essence, it is part and parcel of every government to have the religious communities playing a big role. So as to whether or not we have a place for the religious communities in the government, that is not a question. The issue is, to what extent then do they play their role, and also in support of the government, including now what the Shakahola story became of, because we lost many Kenyans. So as a matter of fact, it is good to deal with it as an active player within the society, within the politics of the society, because back home, a good number of churches are doing a good job, as I've said. Some sponsor some students, they build health institutions, hospitals, like where I come from. Tenwek Hospital, for example, is an institution that has been there for a very long time. Right now, they have done a 5 billion cancer center as a church. So we really can't ignore the fact that they play a critical role, but at the same time, when you have such headlines, one is left to wonder, to what extent do we then want to come and say the government has or has not done this? But otherwise, we definitely...
You as a lawyer, let me ask you first of all, when it comes to creation of offices, like you have the Faith Diplomacy Office,
which I don't know whether it actually indeed exists.
No. We have even a director there. It's called Donson Modenyo, the head of Faith Diplomacy at the Office of the First Lady.
Yes.
And this we came to light as well when we had the issue of a huge entourage that went to Dubai for the COP28, and he came also out starkly denying that he was not part of that entourage that was listed, because Kenya was picked up as one of the countries with the huge delegates, the biggest delegates actually for the COP28. So we have Donson Modenyo, who is the head of Faith Diplomacy at the Office of the First Lady. Under what legal framework do we have this office created? So that, because this is drawing from the exchequer, what instruments are we using to really give accountability and the creation of this particular office? And first of all, why is it leaning on Christianity? I mean, if we are talking about faith diplomacy, should it be to be an interreligious council, so to speak, sort of an interdenominational office that everyone will feel that they're representing this particular office?
A direct answer to you, Dubal, is the fact that you are aware this is an office that is created for the First Lady. It is funded by the Exchequer. As to whether or not now we'll bring on board, whether we will bring on board the interreligious community, that's a completely different thing.
No. I'm asking two questions, but I want to, first of all, under what legal framework? Because we have all these offices that they've come and shut up. Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, it is being funded. We wonder where this funding coming from. What is the legal predication that is underpinning that particular office? So we as Kenyans want to ask, why is my tax being paid for this particular office? Where is the legal instrument that has created this particular office, even from the Constitution itself? Let's just begin from there.
I don't think...
You'll come to that.
The First Lady is the office of the wife of the president of a country, not Kenya alone, right? The reason as to why that office is funded by the Exchequer is because it is an office that is in law created. Therefore, the structure within it, including now this particular office, which head of...
Which you don't know about.
I don't know about it.
I see.
There is a structure that I believe would be approved for purposes of funding, that these are the roles. For instance, I've told you, the Office of the First Lady in Kenya has among the core roles empowerment of the women. This was actually a translation of what she's previously done, empowering women through what we call the joy war, the table banking. And now, if, for instance, there is such an office, as you've said, it must be within part of the roles with which the First Lady has taken up. Remember, the First Lady of the government of 2017-2022, she had cut a niche to do what was it called?
Beyond Zero?
Beyond Zero campaign.
Zero,
Yes. Those are roles which actually captures the attention of Kenyans, and they indeed get to perform certain roles which we cannot, as a matter of fact, say they are not doing the right thing.
Which we're not denying.
Yes.
Which we're not denying.
I just
Because
want to answer
we
you
have
on that.
Mama Doing Good.
Yes.
We have the Mama Doing Good
The Mama
project.
Doing Good project. Yes.
Of Rachel Ruto
Yes,
as well.
yes.
Beyond Zero was a flagship
Yes,
project
yes.
of the previous Margaret Kenyatta's, of course, docket with the first, the Office of the First Lady. But my question is very clear.
Yes.
We don't refute that there are funds.
But the legal,
But the question is, yes, there are funds, but how then do we create these offices?
yeah, that's what I'm...
And again, how then do we get appointments? Because we wonder, Donson Mudenyo, where did he come from?
Can I explain?
Where, was there? Can I just give him a chance? Then we come to you, sir, if you don't mind, right? Or I can see.
You see, the point, the question is very simple. The First Lady has got an office called the First Lady.
Yes.
She gets her funding.
She gets her
The
funding.
number of officers she creates within that is a business. You don't have to go back to Parliament and create a law. For example, Beyond Zero, there was no statute called Beyond Zero. You know what I mean? You have an office, for example, as a member of Parliament.
Beyond, it was a project. It was not an office.
Yeah, but there is no legal underpinning on that one. It's basically the First Lady has decided she was going to do this.
But the fact but the fact we don't have a legal basis
but you're asking right now, what is the legal basis for this office which is created, which is called the faith diplomacy?
And what I'm trying to ask as well is that if there is no legal basis, is there a lacuna in the law?
No.
Yeah?
I'm coming to you.
Okay.
Look, I have a constituency office right now myself, and I get certain amounts of money to run that constituency office. If I'm going to get somebody who is going to work on a certain specialized position, as long as I have the resources in there, I'll decide who I send there. You get my point? The resources that's allocated to me, it's for me to determine how best these resources are going to be utilized, and it's for me to create the offices within that. Because the Exchequer is not going to send money on a line item basis and say, this is for Beyond Zero, this is for faith diplomacy. No, it's the office of the First Lady. Now, this is the money for the office of the First Lady. Then she decides what are her priorities, what are the areas that she's going to pick and run with. You understand my point? And creates those offices herself.
But I think
The same way a member of Parliament...
Asking,
Yes.
I think is what we need to get an answer to, is most of the offices in the public service are actually created by the Public Service Commission. And you find they have already been discussed, the terms of reference are even well documented. So the question, this director, is that an office?
Yes.
Is that office part of the Public Service Commission office which have been established? I think that's the question we're asking.
Yes.
So that even when you have no legal basis from Parliament, but
We can trace it to the Public
is the
Service
Public
Commission.
Service Commission involved? And if so, was it recruited competitively? I think that should be the question which...
Because we have the Public Service Commission, which also has raised questions regarding the office of the Deputy President and the office of on the personal hiring and advisors. We had almost 250. So we need to question 250 personal advisors that are coming, even from the presidency. Of course, has got that a prerogative of doing that. But we need to question all these other offices that also the Auditor General has raised, being put very clearly by Makali Mulu here. Yeah, what channels are they? Or it's just out of my whim, or he's my buddy, he's my friend, because now I've actually been appointed, now he can be my personal assistant. So are there proper channels that are followed through the Public Service Commission, if you can trace? the creation of this particular office, and then how do we fund this particular office? Even with the fundings, it doesn't mean that now you get all these fundings, you can do whatever you want with the monies that you're actually getting from the exchequer. At least there has to be an accountability on how that particular office is being funded. And what is the rhyme and reason for that, having that particular office?
So, Dibal, my first point is that when you elect people into an office or you appoint them to an office, you give them a latitude to achieve what you have given them the mandate to do. So we have to agree that that is there. Even the Constitution says if you are elected president, you have a maximum of this number of ministries that you can create. But it doesn't tell you that you must create this and that and the other.
Exactly.
Okay? And it is an acceptable thing that even when you are governor, you know that the previous governor maybe had this number of CECs and this number of directors. There's nothing in the Constitution or in the County Governments Act that says you must appoint the number that were there. So this goes all the way to First Lady, and it's unfair to single out the office of the First Lady as being different from any other office that are there. But there's a point that you are raising there about the number of advisors, the number of assistants and so on. And this, I know the ESCC has also raised some sort of guidelines saying governors should not appoint too many advisors. Yes. It should be relevant. And they actually, I think they limited them to something like 5. So,
Through what? Through administrative, what do you call
decrease?
Decrease. Yeah. Not a statute, not a piece of legislation which is
there's no legislation that says, yes, as governors, we should appoint five advisors
in this and this field.
In this and this field.
No,
it's up to your priorities
within your own, what they call, budget.
Priorities, yes, and whatever your manifesto says and whatever. So it's unfair to single out the office of the First Lady. But let's go to this question of have the churches been duped? Let's look at the bigger question. The thing is, it is a different issue when you are campaigning and a different space of time when you are in office. When you are campaigning, you have a wish list that when I come in, I will build 50,000 kilometers of tarmac. When you get into office, you have to budget education, you have to budget health, you have to budget water. And when these things come out, then you realize, then I promised 50,000 kilometers of road, but it is not possible to do it in one budget cycle. I can do it maybe in 3 budget cycles. I can do it maybe in 4 budget cycles. So for someone to come and say, my 50,000 kilometers promise has not been delivered, this government has duped us, I think that is a very unfair kind of headline. And I would want to believe that even the preachers and the pastors did not say that. It must be media trying to sell their newspapers, because surely everybody knows that when you are doing your manifesto and when you are in government, there are 2 different periods of time because of what I have just demonstrated. And to me, I think nobody can actually stand up today and say the government has failed, because we have been given 5 years to deliver on that promise. You say within this period, I will deliver this. It's like saying you are in the old system. You're expected to have an exam in standard 8. Now you are in standard 2. And then someone is saying you haven't delivered. It's not proper to make judgment too early in the cycle of governance. I make this argument that there is still time to deliver on a lot of these promises, and it is unfair for someone to stand in the first year or half the year and say the governor has failed, the president has failed, or whatever office, the PS has failed. We have time still to deliver. We are now in the 2nd year, and this is really the first budget that you are running, because if the other one was mainly inheritance and trying to solve debt problems, trying to solve messes, financial messes that were there. That's how I would look at it.
All right, we just do for a station breaker. I'm just reading some of because Treasury takes 258 billion shillings. What was this? Just I've lost track of it a bit. Just to show you on page 6 what we are discussing. Now it is Gachagua. Gachagua employs and sees employers 250 personal staff. So that you're saying that I'm being biased when I pick out the office of the First Lady. I was just giving that as an example. So I want to...
Gachagua as
Gachagua as the office of the Deputy President. So it says here that non-competitive recruitment means that the recruits were handpicked as opposed to a fair appointment process where vacancies are publicly advertised and qualified individuals invited to apply for selection on merit. And then this was from the Public Service Commission's report. It says part of the reasons given for the non-competitive appointment included in the appointment of personal staff of the Deputy President and advisors of the Cabinet Secretaries, which are normally not competitive, hence should not be part of the inclusion in non-competitive appointment. This is what the PS is alluding to, just as you're saying. But it says the Constitution, as we take a short break, the Constitution requires that fair competition and merit shall be the basis of all appointments and promotions in the public service. The only exception, as provided under Section 10 of the Values and Principles Act 2015, is where one gender, one ethnic community, or persons with disabilities are underrepresented relative to the national population size. In such instances, an authorized officer is exempted from unduly relying on competition to make appointments or promotions. The hiring spree came in the period the commissions also, though the commission said 47 state entities had recruited 1,443 employees. And we're talking about that accountability also from State House. When you remember, we had ghost workers